So today's reading, I've chosen a piece from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And if you're not familiar with her, she's basically an Native American botanist, and she went through the whole, Western training. But I've chosen a piece where she talks about, getting in touch with her roots. So there's a word that really inspired her. It was called Pupoe. And her writing is in first person, singular. So I'm going to read it with the word I. I guess maybe that's why this makes it so powerful for me. I may end up tearing up by the time I get to the end of this reading. So Pupoe, she explained, translates as the force which causes mushrooms to push up from the earth overnight. As a biologist, I was stunned that such a word existed. In all its technical vocabulary, Western science has no such term, no words to hold this mystery. You'd think that biologists of all people would have words for life, but in scientific language, our terminology is used to define the boundaries of our knowing. What lies beyond our grasp remains unnamed. In the 3 syllables of this new word, I could see an entire process of close observation in the damp morning woods, the formulation of a theory for which English has no equivalent. The makers of this word understood a world of being, full of unseen energies that animate everything. I've cherished it for many years as a talisman and longed for the people who gave a name to the life force of mushrooms. The language that holds Pupoe is one that I wanted to speak. So when I learned that the word for rising, for emergence, belonged to the language of my ancestors, it became a signpost for me. Had history been different, I would likely speak Potawatomi. But like many of the 350 indigenous languages of the Americas, Potawatomi is threatened, and I speak the language you read. The powers of assimilation did their work as my chance of hearing that language, and yours too was washed from the mouths of Indian children in government boarding schools where speaking your native tongue was forbidden. Children like my grandfather, who was taken from his family when he was just a little boy of 9 years old. This history scattered not only our words, but also our people. Today, I live far from our reservation, so even if I could speak the language, I would have no one to talk to. But a few summers ago, at our yearly tribal gathering, a language class was held, and I slipped into the tent to listen. There was a great deal of excitement about the class because for the first time, every single fluent speaker in our world would be there as a teacher. When the speakers were called forward to the circle of folding chairs, they moved slowly with canes, walkers, and wheelchairs. Only a few entirely under their own power. I counted them as they filled the chairs. 9. 9 fluent speakers in the whole world. Our language, millennia in the making, sits in those 9 chairs. The words that praised creation, told the old stories, lulled my ancestors to sleep, rest today in the tongues of 9 very mortal men and women. Each in turn addressed the small group of would-be students. The first, a man with a long gray beard, tells how his mother hid him away when the Indian agents came to take the children. He escaped boarding school by hiding under an overhung bank where the sound of the stream covered his crying. The others were all taken and had their mouths washed out with soap, or worse, talking that dirty Indian language. because he alone stayed home and was raised up calling the plants and animals by the name Creator gave them. He is here today, a carrier of the language. Another speaker, Jim Thunder, at 75, the youngest of the speakers, is a round brown man of serious demeanor who spoke only in Potawatomi. He began solemnly, but as he warmed to his subject, his voice lifted like a breeze in the birch trees, and his hands began to tell the story. He became more and more animated, rising to his feet, holding us rapt and silent, although almost no one understood a single word. He paused as if reaching the climax of his story and looked out at the audience with a twinkle of expectation. One of the grandmothers behind him covered her mouth in a giggle, and his stern face suddenly broke into a smile as big and sweet as a cracked watermelon. He bent over laughing, and the grandmas dabbed away tears of laughter, holding their sides, while the rest of us looked on in wonderment. When the laughter subsided, he spoke at last in English. What will happen to a joke when it can no longer be heard anymore? How lonely those words will be. When their power is gone, where will they go? Off to join the stories that can never be told again? So now, my house is spangled with Post-it notes in another language, as if I were studying for a trip abroad. But I'm not going away. I'm coming home.